A humble beginning, 1758 to 1774. James Monroe was born on April 28, 1758, in Westmoreland County, Virginia, into a modest planter family. His father, Spence Monroe, was a farmer and carpenter, while his mother, Elizabeth Jones Monroe, was a devoted homemaker. Though not wealthy, the Monroes were respected members of colonial society. Young James grew up in a time of growing political unrest. Britain's taxes and laws deeply affected even rural Virginian communities. Monroe, as a teenager, witnessed the early rumblings of rebellion that would later define his life. He was athletic, curious, and often found with books or practicing with his musket. He initially attended Campbelltown Academy and showed early academic promise. But it was clear, the world was changing fast, and Monroe was destined to be a part of that change. A patriot in war, 1775 to 1783. At the age of just 17, Monroe left college and joined the Continental Army. He became a lieutenant in the 3rd Virginia Regiment and fought bravely under General George Washington. Monroe was wounded in the shoulder at the Battle of Trenton in 1776, the same battle where Washington famously crossed the Delaware River. His service made a lasting impression on the young soldier. He believed in the American cause not only with passion but with blood. He wintered at Valley Forge, witnessed the chaos of war, and learned about leadership from the likes of Washington, Lafayette, and Alexander Hamilton. After recovering from his wound, Monroe returned to Virginia and began to consider how else he could serve the newborn nation. Legal mind and early political rise, 1783 to 1790. After the war, Monroe studied law under the mentorship of Thomas Jefferson. This apprenticeship would influence him for life, as he adopted Jefferson's vision of a decentralized federal government and agrarian democracy. In 1782, Monroe began his political career by being elected to the Virginia House of Delegates. Just a year later, he joined the Continental Congress. Though young, Monroe quickly gained attention as a thoughtful and passionate advocate for individual liberty and state rights. He opposed the ratification of the Constitution in 1788, believing it gave too much power to the federal government. Yet despite this, Monroe's popularity continued to grow across Virginia and beyond. Marriage and personal life, 1786 to 1799. In 1786, James Monroe married Elizabeth Cortright, the daughter of a wealthy New York merchant. Their marriage was a loving one, and Elizabeth became not only a partner in life but also a trusted political advisor. Known for her elegance, she would later earn the nickname La Belle Américaine, while serving as First Lady in France and Washington. The couple had 3 children, though only one, Maria Hester Monroe, survived to adulthood. Monroe was a devoted husband and father. His letters show a man deeply connected to his family, often torn between political duty and personal affection. Their home, Highland, located near Jefferson's Monticello, became a hub for intellectuals and politicians. Monroe cherished his rural life and spent much of his free time farming and reading. The Diplomat Abroad, 1794 to 1797. In 1794, President George Washington appointed Monroe as minister to France during a very turbulent time, the French Revolution. Monroe arrived in Paris to a people still inspired by America's Revolution but now descending into chaos and violence. Monroe's mission was to maintain strong relations between France and the United States. However, his sympathies for the French Republic put him at odds with Washington's administration, which was leaning more toward neutrality. Monroe's warm relationship with the French made his superiors suspicious back home. By 1796, Monroe was recalled, feeling misunderstood and politically bruised. But the experience solidified his identity as a defender of democratic principles and a student of international affairs. Governor and statesman, 1799 to 1803. Returning home, Monroe served multiple terms as governor of Virginia. During his governorship, he reformed the state militia and improved internal infrastructure. He was known for being a man of integrity and moderation, often navigating conflicts between Federalists and Democratic Republicans. In 1803, President Jefferson tapped Monroe for his most important diplomatic mission yet, to join Robert Livingston in France and negotiate the purchase of New Orleans. To Monroe's surprise, Napoleon offered the entire Louisiana territory. This became known as the Louisiana Purchase, one of the largest land deals in history, doubling the size of the United States. Monroe's diplomatic skill helped seal the deal. Political climb and secretary roles, 1803 to 1816. Monroe returned a national hero, but political disagreements occasionally slowed his rise. He ran for president in 1808 but lost the nomination to James Madison. However, Monroe later served under Madison as both Secretary of State and Secretary of War, the only person in U.S. history to hold both roles simultaneously. During the War of 1812, Monroe helped rebuild the U.S. military after the British burned Washington, D.C. His leadership in a time of crisis was widely admired. Monroe's loyalty and competence during these difficult years positioned him perfectly for the presidency. The Monroe presidency begins 1817 to 1825. In 1817, James Monroe was elected as the 5th President of the United States, succeeding James Madison. He began his presidency during what would later be called the Era of Good Feelings, a time of relative national unity. Monroe focused on national expansion, economic growth, and reducing partisan politics. He toured the country extensively, becoming the first president since Washington to do so. His presidency witnessed the building of roads and canals, the rise of the American system, and continued westward expansion. But it was also marked by tensions. Slavery, economic inequality, and regional divides were growing. The Monroe Doctrine, 1823. Perhaps Monroe's most lasting legacy is the Monroe Doctrine, declared in 1823. This bold policy told European powers to stay out of the Western Hemisphere. It signaled the U.S. was no longer a minor player but a guardian of democracy in the Americas. The doctrine was the brainchild of Monroe and his Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams. It asserted American dominance in foreign policy and became a cornerstone of U.S. strategy for more than a century. Personal struggles and later years, 1825 to 1831. After leaving office in 1825, Monroe faced personal and financial hardship. His beloved wife Elizabeth passed away in 1830, and Monroe was devastated. He moved in with his daughter Maria in New York City. Though retired, Monroe remained a respected elder statesman. He offered advice to younger leaders and continued to defend the ideals of the Revolution. On July 4, 1831, exactly 5 years after the deaths of Jefferson and Adams, James Monroe died at the age of 73. He was the 3rd president to die on Independence Day, a remarkable symbol of his deep connection to America's founding. Legacy of the last founding father. James Monroe is often called America's last founding father. He served in more high-level government positions than nearly any other American in history. Senator, ambassador, governor, Secretary of State, Secretary of War, and President. His name lives on in dozens of cities, counties, and even the capital of Liberia, Monrovia. Despite not being as intellectually towering as Jefferson or politically cunning as Madison, Monroe's strength was his dedication, honesty, and national unity. He helped shape a country that was still finding its identity and stood as a symbol of calm in a rapidly changing world.